this felt like an easy thing to do, and I watched kind of like chunk of it, and I was like, okay, this is this is getting ridiculous. I need to do something about it. Yeah, which is again like I have a bunch of ideas like that in the chamber. But yeah, this one was like recency bias. This one I was like literally watching it yesterday at the evening. So we're going to watch it. I don't know when I'm going to like start disagreeing with him. I know that like by the middle of the video he already said like a few things that like I don't like. But yeah. So I'm not super. Yeah, I haven't done like reaction videos for a bit, so I don't know if like my audio and whatnot is like set up correctly. But let's just hope. Let's just hope for the best. I also don't know if I should like make it full screen or. It's a yeah.
Node, please welcome.
Okay. So. I think that's all the introduction. We're just going to watch it, and we're just going to hear what I think. I guess just going into this, I've been kind of like following a lot of the framework stuff since I don't know, like 2014. So yeah, I obviously kind of like knew of Vue, and I had to write Vue before. I think I had like a 4 hour stream where I was like kind of like learning Vue, kind of like on stream. Uh, yeah, I don't know if I recommend it. Well, I don't know if I either recommend like learning Vue or watching that stream, but you do you. Okay, let's just watch it.
CJ Reynolds.
Thank you for that great introduction.
I will probably watch it a bit on like at a higher speed. I know that like all the cool streamers are doing it. I don't know if that's yeah. It like 20 minutes felt like it's like small enough where I can go through it. But let's see if we will need to make the speed even faster by the end of it.
And as was mentioned, we're talking about blazing fast Vue.js with Vapor Mode. And this is a Vue talk, but if you're not a Vue dev, you're still in for a treat. We're going to be talking about some other stuff too. So pretty much all of front-end development these days lies on top of a single concept. V equals f of s, or the Vue is a function of state.
Right. So this is a Vue version of UI is a function of state. Right? They don't like that version because Vue sounds better when they say it's Vue. And also, I'm just back from like ReactConf, right? And they're saying, well, it's not as simple, right? It's a bit more complicated. I should probably like pull up that bit if I can find it.
Otherwise known as declarative UI, right? So when we write our components, we can write them in a way that is declarative, right? This Vue component here just says, render out the title in that H3. If the input ever changes, update the title behind the scenes, and the Vue is going to automatically update. So this is declarative UI. This is a Vue as a function of state. And as Vue.js developers, this is all we have to do. We don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty details of what's happening behind the scenes to actually update this on the web page itself. And when you write code like this in Vue.js, that template function, or that template element you have there, actually gets compiled into a virtual DOM render function. You may not have realized that because you don't really need to know that, but ultimately that actually is very similar to writing React code. So for all my React coders in the audience, you do get some.
Yeah. So this is the tweet I was thinking about. UI is a function of state, except like you need to await for UI and await for the function and await for the state, right? Like the nowadays it's not as simple, but yeah. Then again,
some React code in this talk, even though it's about Vue. But basically, this is declarative, right? You write some code that talks about your state, shows how it should render out, and we have working websites. And really the way this works is at compile time. So when you run npm run build or npm run build, it takes that template that you wrote and turns it into a virtual DOM render function. If you're writing React, there's a little bit less of a transformation because all of those JSX tags just get turned into create node calls, but your Vue template gets turned into some very similar code.
right. So this is where like I already started having some problems, right? It's like, well, what exactly are we doing at compilation? And again, like this is a talk in like 2025, right? Like it's published 3 days ago. React is already has like React compiler. Svelte already like rewrote their reactivity like or their compiler like a couple of times. This is like such a like oversimplification. So like I don't know. Oh, CJ chats. Uh, I don't know what I have against Vue. Yeah, it's the yeah. That's almost kind of like yeah. I don't know if Vue is the last one that I would try, but it's close there, right? Because it's like um kind of like React has its thing, Solid has its thing, even like Preact has its thing, or I don't know, like Lit. Vue is just like it's like amorphous. It's just like, well, you can do everything, kinda. Yeah. It's not like popping off in any way. But anyway, so on the compilation stuff, right? This is like a very like oversimplified. And again, like if you're just saying like, oh, they have like a templating format or they have like a JSX transform step, it's like yeah, like all of them do. So I don't know what he was trying to say with this.
But what that means is when your code is actually running in the browser, it goes through this whole process where anytime there's a state update, so if you imagine the example I showed you, let's say that title gets updated, we have to go through this process of first rendering out a virtual DOM tree. We then take that new
Like it's funny that this is not even true, right? So like he's talking about Vue and he's like, oh, it's just like React, you have to do like virtual DOM and all that stuff. But that's not true. Like you have like a whole reactivity system that is like not kind of like tied to virtual DOM. So you can do a bunch of stuff kind of like before you do virtual DOM. So yeah, I don't know.
tree, compare it against the old tree, and figure out what actually changed. In this case, title might have changed. And we then, that whole process is called the VDOM reconciliation algorithm. And after all of that, then we finally go and update the DOM with what has happened based on what the user did. So I want you all to be honest. How many of you have ever said, the VDOM is fast when you were talking to like a coworker or something like that? Yeah, you probably said it. But my question is, faster than what, right? It's definitely faster than replacing an entire DOM tree, right? So it's faster than
Well, I guess no, right? Like in edge cases, right? Like if I'm replacing the whole tree with VDOM and I'm replacing the whole tree with inner HTML, like it's going to be as fast, right? Or like slower because you have some overhead. So yeah, I don't know. I guess like he's just like me. It's like it's faster than inner HTML. Like using inner HTML as like a kind of like a backbone style, right? So like VDOM is faster than backbone. Is that what he's trying to say?
Then literally saying element.innerHTML equals a whole new string of HTML, right? And that's why we don't write code like this. That's why we have a framework that can handle those piecemeal updates via the virtual DOM.
Well, it's not that. That's why, right? It's a lot of like people who are like, oh, like we didn't have anything before React, or like we had jQuery and then React. It's like no, there's like a bunch of different ways of like how stuff was rendered that wasn't this and wasn't VDOM. So yeah, I don't know what's the obsession of like trying to make it that is like there were no alternatives to VDOM. I don't know why people like keep saying that, but there are people who do that.
Because this is really slow. If you ran this in a browser, it has to repaint that entire element. So
right, it's not slow, right? Like it's slow for some of the patterns how you would render it, right? Like it is not slow, like because otherwise like browsers wouldn't use it, right? Or I guess like frameworks wouldn't use it, right? Like frameworks do use inner HTML. Like it is not slow. So like he's trying to like say something. How to say it? He's like saying something that is like so generic that like it's no longer true. But and again, like I just like don't like the framing of like everything like we had like a dark ages before React happened. It's like, no, like you can still do that. You can still do that performantly. You can still do that in like in web components, right? Like if your web components is like small enough that like what it does is like one text node update, right? Like element.text content or like element.inner HTML works just fine. It's just like when you're comparing to this, you're comparing to kind of like to two, well, like three things, right? So I didn't know I will get upset for like in 3 minutes, but so what he's showing here, right, is that he's showing here like some state, right? So you need a system that will trigger the state. And again, like you can do that badly, you can do that like Angular style, right? You can do that the right way. Then you have like a template, right? So like how do you turn the state into like new piece of HTML? And then how do you kind of like how do you know when to like to flash that HTML into like DOM node? And like all of those are done like presumably what he's showing here is that like all of it is done like not optimally here, and that's why like VDOM is better. But like you can like have like a cached value of HTML, the old string, right? It's like, oh, is the old state is the same as the new one? Don't touch the DOM then, right? Oh, you have like a string templates for like templating. Oh, use like I don't know, like template literals, right? Like that's going to be faster, kind of like usually on average and whatnot, right? Like with static parts. And like for state, again, like don't just re-render everything, be kind of like reactive and whatnot. And it's like, well, you can write almost exactly the same code, but do all of those things, and they will be faster than VDOM, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's just like too simplistic. I don't like the like nothing existed before VDOM.
The virtual DOM is faster than this, definitely, but it's not faster and will never be faster than just direct DOM updates, right? So writing code that directly.
What's the difference? I don't know. And again, like if your state is not configured properly, yes, will be slower. So like none of both statements that VDOM is faster than like inner HTML, and the statement that is like VDOM is slower than text element text content, they are both wrong depending on like what do you mean exactly by those updates, right? I don't know, because it's like I'm presuming that like he means like this one is slow because of like how it gets the state, and like this could be slow because how you get the state.
It's the lowest level of abstraction we have when building out user interfaces for a web.
Again, it's not the lowest abstraction, right? Like you're not always updating the text content. It's not always this fastest one because there are like some templating tricks, right? And there are like some like, oh, find this text between like comments and all that stuff. So like I guess I know what he's saying, right? It's like like example where you're like updating one counter, right? Like if you know that like only the text of the counter is changing, like updating precisely that text in DOM is going to be like faster.
Browser. So the virtual DOM is never going to be faster than this. And if you look at that flow of state update, VDOM render, VDOM reconciliation, and then DOM update, wouldn't it be great if we just cut out the middleman and went from whenever there was a state update, we instantly had a DOM update?
Yeah. So I think this point is
cut out the middleman.
I think this one he's doing like pretty well. So he's saying that you can get from like that one to this one with like compilation step, because like during compilation step you can tell it that is like, oh, for this sort of state update you don't need to do the whole reconciler, you can just do DOM update. But that's not like 100% true again, right? Because it's like, what if I'm like navigating into a new route, then I need to blow up the whole page anyway, right? So like, so every framework has to do kind of like this and this. So it's kind of like, it's never as simple as this.
And went from whenever there was a state update, we instantly had a DOM update. This, my friends, is Vue.js Vapor Mode, and it's what we're talking about today. So, hello, nice to see you.
I actually kind of like when I was hearing that, it's like, oh, this is so fast. This is Vue.js, and it's like, yes, this is true about some of the like updates that Vue.js can do, and especially if you go like a bit manually, and if you use their like rendering, not rendering, the like the state, reactive state primitives and whatnot. But yeah, the annoying part is that like he's saying that
This, my friend.
he's saying that this, like, it sounds like this didn't exist before React, and that was like faster than like React, faster than. So this frames it as there is kind of like just like one alternative, like this, right? And we only had this, or like kind of like jQuery, right? Then we only had this because of React, and then now we have this because of Vue Vapor Mode, and like none of those things are true, right? Like this existed before Vapor Mode. This existed before Solid. This existed like in different frameworks and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know.
Friends is Vue.js Vapor Mode, and it's what we're talking about today. So, hello, nice to see you. My name is CJ. I am a senior creator at a place called Syntax, and every episode of Syntax and video of Syntax is brought to you by Sentry, an error monitoring company. So, who here listens to the Syntax podcast? Nice. Who here watches the YouTube channel? Nice. Love to hear it. So, if you want to learn more, syntax.fm, sentry.io. I also have my own thing called Coding Garden, which I'm kind of neglecting since I started at Syntax, so there's some weeds in the garden, but here's where I got my start, live streaming on YouTube and Twitch, and basically doing like full stack builds and talking through my process. So you can learn more at coding.garden. Now let's figure out who all of you are. And because this is a Vue talk, I assume there's some people here that write Vue, so who writes Vue on a daily basis?
That was fun.
Probably like 40-50% of the crowd. Great, glad to see you here. Any React devs in the crowd? Okay, probably the other 30-40%, which makes it.
Yeah, so 40 to 50 Vue, 30 to 40 React. That leaves us with 0 to 20% other.
Since we're at a JavaScript conference and React is kind of dominant, any pre-Act devs? Got one? Yeah? What about Angular? Yes, cool. Any Svelte devs?
He didn't say like how many like Angular, right? So Preact is presumably like one person or like a couple of people.
One. Any
Svelte one.
solid devs? For the record, no hand.
Okay, he made it a point that there are no solid devs, right? On a Vue talk, because that's the Vue community, right? Is that they try to ignore everything that happens, and then they will make it look like Vue Vapor has nothing to do with Solid, and they just like invented the whole thing. Yeah, it looks like. Well, he's saying that like it's Vue specific talk, so I don't know if that's. I think UtahJS is actually. I'm in Utah, but like I never went there. So UtahJS is, I think, it's just like a overall just like a JS conference, but he's saying that it's a Vue talk. So yeah, I don't know if they had like multiple tracks or whatever.
Hand is raised, so there are no solid devs in here. Any HTMX developers? There's a few, cool.
Yeah, so the burn is that they had more HTMX developers than like Preact or Solid or Svelte developers. So yeah, that's kind of funny.
Before we dive into Vapor Mode and how Vue.js is doing rendering these days, I want to do a quick history and talk about how rendering has happened throughout the front-end landscape. So
again, hate that whole thing. Like, I hate when people talk about web history and they start with Angular, right? It's like, oh yeah, thanks.
There was front-end developers before 2010, but this is where we're starting. And when AngularJS came out, it had two-way data binding and did dirty checking and had a digest loop. So essentially, behind the scenes, there was a polling mechanism that was checking to see, are there state changes, are there state changes, are there state changes? And if there were, then it would update the DOM. And that worked. It wasn't ideal, but it worked for what it was. And then in 2013, React came out, and it brought...
Yeah, but like he didn't he didn't explain like why they're doing it, right? Like that was like his whole argument, like in the previous section of like, oh, like updating DOM is slow, and it's like, well, they were doing that because that was like faster than just like storing state directly in DOM. Because like if you read state, like it will it will cause like browser repainting or whatever, right? Because it's like, oh, if you just change something and you're trying to read it again, right? Like that might cause the things, and it's like, I'm just like
the
annoyed
virtual DOM,
when
which we kind
people
of talked about at the beginning. Basically, you write code that produces virtual DOM trees, and then behind the scenes, those get diffed to actually update the UI. In 2014, Vue.js was released, and Vue.js version 1 actually did direct DOM manipulation with reactive data binding. So they were like 10, 11 years ahead of their time.
Again, not ahead of the time. That's what everyone else was doing. So it's just like funny that like how like the Angular thing was like different, right? Like everyone was doing kind of like a version of this, and then Angular said is like, oh, we want to like make it so that you don't have to like worry about like advanced updates and all that stuff. We will just like do it all for you. React did kind of like the same thing, but just like better, right? And yeah, if you watch like early React talks and whatnot, they're like, well, you need to tell it, like, we don't want to do dirty checking, so like you need to tell us when to like this dot update, like in Remix 3 terms, right? You need to tell us when to do updates. And like the alternative to that was like, well, like Knockout.js or something, right? It's like, well, I know when to update. Yeah, so sorry.
Because in version 1, that's actually how it worked. But in 2016, they released version 2, and they actually switched to a virtual DOM. The reason being, VDOM works much better if you're trying to do things like server-side rendering, if you're trying to handle like asynchronous code.
I'm not sure if they knew even about server-side rendering. I'm curious. I'm curious if that was like a actual reason. I know that's like nowadays it's the reason, but I don't know. And again, like you could do both. It feels like why would that be a difference? I like my well, I will get into that later, but
and ultimately, if you want to write lower level templates, because with the introduction of using the virtual DOM in V2, you could actually write Vue components with JSX. And
I don't know what it means to lower level templates. Like I just like it sounds like a Vue thing. Like I have no idea what that means.
That was enabled because it was built on top of a virtual DOM. In 2016, Angular version 2 was released, and it brought ahead of time compilation with change detection. So it was one of the first frameworks to basically highly optimize the output code, and then the runtime itself was really just checking for changes, and then that highly optimized code.
I'm not sure if that's true again, right? This is like we had a bunch of frameworks before that, and it's how to say it? A bunch of like stuff like, you know, like Inferno or however it was called. Lucy? No, I forgot. Yeah.
Code would update the DOM directly. So even Angular was pretty ahead of its time as well. And around the same time in 2016, that's when Svelte came out, and they kind of popularized this idea of like ahead of time compilation. They were known as the disappearing UI framework.
Which is not true, right? But like they are known as that, so that's funny.
And basically, it was they have a compiler that went directly to DOM code. There was no runtime code, and this was a revolutionary idea at the time. But basically, you.
I think that's also not true, right? Like they had like a small runtime, so like they didn't have like everything constantly doing like updates. I think like the thing that they did is that they had separate kind of like create and update code, and so create was like creating everything, but update only was updating the reactive parts. But like they still had like a bit of like a runtime, so yeah, I never believed the disappearing.
You could write
part.
declarative code that is nice to use and easy, But at the end of the day, the code that you're shipping is as minimal as possible, and all that's required to actually update the UI.
Right, it's minimal for like one component. Once you have like, I think Ryan Carniata did like a thing where it's like, oh, once you have like 1,000 components or whatever, it's like it's more the like the overhead of like using the smaller runtime is like higher than if you had like a bigger runtime.
In 2018, Solid.js came out, and it was kind of a hybrid mode, but they learned a lot from Svelte. So Svelte kind of proved that you didn't really need a virtual DOM to do this kind of thing.
Again, I don't see how that's even true at slightest, right? It's like they didn't learn anything from Svelte. They were doing knockout. Like I don't know what he's talking about.
And Solid.js actually allows you to write JSX, and it does direct DOM updates. So for any React developer out there, Solid.js is probably the closest thing.
Why am I so annoyed by this? Okay, so writing JSS to do DOM updates. I think what he's saying is that like in Vue people's minds, you couldn't do JSX with kind of like the approach that like Vue 1 was doing. And to support JSX, they had to do VDOM. And for Vue developers, this is like surprising that you can do JSX without VDOM. I don't like the framing of like JSX to do DOM updates. I think this is kind of like nonsense. But like that's probably what he meant by like the lower level templates or whatever he called him. But like this, yeah, this is so annoying. There was like another thing.
And it does direct DOM updates. So DOM to do this kind of thing. And Solid.js actually allows you to write JSX, and it does direct DOM updates. So for any React developer out there, Solid.js is probably the closest thing that you might like to take a look at that does things in this more optimal way, where instead of having a virtual DOM tree.
Okay, so as a React developer, you should look at Solid because it allows you to do things in this more optimal way. Okay, so, but like, doesn't Vue also have JSX? So like, I think he's saying that like, oh, what I'm showing here is direct DOM updates, which I don't like the framing, and you can do direct DOM updates in Vue Vapor and in Solid, and you will like Solid more because it uses JSX.
It uses signals, so there is still a little bit of runtime code to keep track of the data that's
But so is Vue. Like, what he's talking? I'm so confused.
changing, and ultimately it has
The Vue Vapor, I mean,
has fine-grained reactivity. So instead of entire virtual DOM diffs, instead it's targeting and updating specific elements as the user is interacting with.
Again, not necessarily, right? Like that's the whole thing about like Svelte. They had to have like two different like outputs, right? Like one for creation, one for updates. You still need to do the creation part, right? Like if you're like navigating to a different page, you need to like blow up the DOM and do the inner HTML. Like like we didn't go away out of it. Like you still have to do that part. You need to make it like a decision which one I'm doing right now, right? But like you still need to do both
with your app, and as state is changing. In 2020, Vue.js v3 was released, and this brought compiler-informed virtual DOM. So Vue.js actually has one of the fastest virtual DOM implementations, and that's.
Wait, this was the part I was like, oh, I need to do like reaction video, like because this doesn't make any sense. In 2020, Vue v3 had one of the fastest virtual DOMs, and it's like, what are you even talking about? Right? When would I'm curious, when would like 2020 would be? Is that like around like 100? Do they have Vue 3 here? What is Vue? Vue. Yeah, okay, Vue v3, right? So that's like 120, right? Like I guess that's what they mean by like the fastest. And which one of them is DOM 1? Virtual DOM 1. I used to remember that sort of stuff. Ivy? The Ivy is the Ivy. what is this? I don't know. It's huge difference. They also I just don't get why a lot of developers are working this problem. Check templates and show exclusive. Yeah. Okay. I don't remember like incremental DOM and virtual DOM. No, that's not the right Ivy. No, okay. I guess this one is not virtual DOM. Oh, like I forgot. Inferno? Is that the one I'm thinking? Right. All right. Does it say virtual DOM? No. React like. Is that? Yeah, Inferno virtual DOM. Right. So like there were like other frameworks that were doing like fast virtual DOM. Like Vue was not one of them. They were not competing in that space. They were just a virtual DOM. Like they usually block DOM. Yeah, I'm confused a bit. God, Twitter is worse than Twitch. Yes, they do be worse. Yeah, sorry, I was missing some chat. Parasocial fix. So I'm at Parasocial fix on YouTube's. And yeah, I usually stream on like all three, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And yeah, hi everyone in chat. Anyway, so like just like this framework of like, oh, Vue is the fastest, and it's like, well, compared to what? Like, why are we talking like that? What kind of like made it fast? And like I don't remember like if he goes there, right? Like, and what kind of like makes it fast? Kind of like again like compared to React in kind of like day to day, right? It's like is that they have their reactivity system, right? Like for the stuff that you have to go for like GeoTie or something like that in React, you could do a lot of that stuff just like built in Vue, right? And like it has nothing to do with like fast virtual DOM in V3.
That's because they do smart things ahead of time. So when you run npm run build, it actually adds hints in the compiled code and extracts things out that don't necessarily need to be part of your virtual DOM render function. So V3 of Vue has a really fast virtual DOM implementation. So this is the landscape.
Right, and again, like that's the whole point of like kind of like how I look at Vue, right? Is that like they did direct DOM reactive data binding because that's what everyone was doing. I don't remember exactly, but I think that like the term was like when Vue was released, he looked at Angular and said, yeah, but why are they doing it like that? That's like worse. Let's just do it like normal way. And so the Vue 1 was like just like a normal way as how like web developers like were doing like apps back then, right? Then in 2016, he's like, oh, React is now the normal way. Let me just do the React way, right? And this one, he like looked at a React because like, well, we still have to do that. And he looked at Svelte, the disappearing framework, right? And he's like, oh, can I use just like some of those techniques without going this like very small runtime because like that doesn't scale. So it's like, why would I do that, right? But like, can I just do the compiler hints? And so like by version 3, we have the original like how the web was made, right? With like refs or whatever they call it. All right, right. So then we have the V2. Oh, what's happening? Okay, so we have the like V2, just like, oh, this is how the web is made now, right? But like still preserving some of the like the reactivity stuff, kind of like for state, right? And then we do like V3 that is like, well, can I just like now combine like knockout React and Svelte, right? Like, so now I have 3 frameworks in one, And also V3 is when they added like hooks and not hooks, and like JSX and not JSX. So it's like, oh yeah, JSX was added here, right? But like, so by the time of V3, we just had like everything that was good on the web. Let's just put it in one place. It's kind of like C++ or like web frameworks, right?
Here's how everyone is doing things, and soon, very, very soon, Vue.js is going to be releasing version 3.6, which brings us vapor mode.
Right? So in the vapor mode is like, oh, the stuff that they were doing, what is it now? Like 7 years ago, right? Like, so let's just bring into like the stuff that they're doing in like Solid and now in React and Angular and all that stuff, right? Like, let's just like add one more into the pile.
And it's kind of a culmination of all these ideas that have been floating around the front end
Not culmination, like a Frankenstein monster.
ecosystem, and been brought into Vue.js itself. And so I've been using Vue.js since 2016 or so. And in the early days of Vue, when I was teaching it and telling people about it, I always said, and people would say once they saw it, it kind of looked like the combination of React and AngularJS. Not Angular 2 yet, but the old Angular with all the ng directives and everything. When you looked at Vue.js, it was like, oh, it's very familiar. There's a v-for and a v-if, very similar to what was in Angular, but it's using a virtual DOM. So in the early days, Vue was like the baby that was had by React and Angular. And today, it's like, take that baby that React
Yeah,
and Angular
he doesn't know about
and then
knockout.
let's say there was another baby that was made by Svelte and Solid, and they somehow found each other and had a baby. This would give you Vue.js vapor mode.
Yeah, so, and I think Angular, like the only part that they liked from Angular was like the syntax, which again, was kind of like wrong. They were like, use the platform, just like use string attributes. No one likes that. Like, why would you do that? I guess like if you, how is it called? Like there's like a smaller version of Vue Petite or something like that, right? Like that's kind of like the closest thing that they have kind of like for Angular, like in kind of like in runtime, right? But like usually they just like the Angular syntax, but they were like confused. Why would they do the whole dirty checking thing where you can just like use the normal way of knockout, the normal way of React, or the normal way of Solid or Svelte, or the normal way of Solid now, right?
And so it's really taking all the best of the ideas of how everyone is rendering stuff and creating a highly optimized and performant way of rendering out apps. So you might be wondering, why do we need performant rendering? Ultimately, it's for highly interactive UIs. So let's say you have dashboards, you have charts, anything that's really changing in the UI very often. Maybe data tables or like massive lists of data. Really anything that's just constantly updating. That's when you need to care about rendering, and that's when something like the virtual DOM might actually break down.
It doesn't break. Oh my god, right? I'm biased, right? I'm just back from React Conf, but like there are like different solutions to the same problem, right? Like so the solution that like React is doing is this whole like different priorities, right? Just like deprioritizing work, having like background work, doing the like the activity and whatnot, right? So it's like the stuff like virtual release, right? Like they can like have to solve that for like React Native, right? And like they solve that, right? So or like React View or no React window, right? Or whatever it's called, React table. Yeah, I'm not like following too closely. Haven't done those in a while, but there are like different approaches to like you can solve all of those things, right? Like for the most part, is it like you can use like React and Jotai, for example, right? Like that gives you kind of like a fine grain, kind of like only rendering stuff that matters. And it's like, well, like Vue is already like doing that. They already have like stores, and it's like it's just like funny how like they don't like even like follow what is happening, and they just like believe the hype, and they just like say things that are not true. And in this case, it's even funnier because they're saying things that are not true about Vue, like V3, right? And saying, "Oh, it's pointless. Like, just kill it. It's like it's not doing anything." And it's like it's doing it fine. Just like if you use it right.
So with vapor mode, It's coming in version 3.6. It's currently in alpha. And essentially, you can write the exact same code as you're writing today, but it's going to have a different output. So instead of outputting code that is virtual DOM code, it's going to output code that is highly performant without the virtual DOM runtime that can directly update the UI. It uses the exact same API, but you're going to get better performance and less memory usage, and it's compatible with existing code.
Yeah, so this is the part that like I've been following the Vue Vapor as it was kind of like happening kind of like years ago, right? So now that they are so the part that when it's compatible with existing code bases, that wasn't like true when it like first started. They were like, we have like no idea how we're going to do it, right? So like, is it kind of like the Angular style? We just like do like V4 and like you have to rewrite everything. It's like the libraries are not going to be compatible. So like, yeah. So this is interesting that like they figured it out how to make like existing code work. And I don't know what that means like in practice, like how much of the existing code will still work. But this is definitely like something that they're pulling from like Svelte 5, right? So I think what Svelte 5 did kind of like correctly is that if you just copy like Svelte code from old tutorial, like it will still work. It will give you the warning. It will like say that, oh, by the way, you're using like the code that is like not optimal, right? But like it will still work, and like all of your dependencies and all that stuff like still works. So yeah, I'm glad that like Vapor kind of like figured out how to do that part, because that wasn't the case kind of like years before when they were like just announcing it.
Code bases. So how fast is it?
Yeah, so yeah, just like through the whole talk, this was like the first compliment, right? And I was like, now we go completely off the cliff.
Very, very fast. So this is a very popular benchmark that's on GitHub. It's called JS Framework Benchmark. And I have the latest benchmark results here. We want this one so I don't blind you all. But I filtered it down to just show us Vue with Vapor mode, Svelte, Solid, Vue without Vapor mode, Preact, and React, and Angular. And you can see that Vue Vapor is even faster than Svelte compiled code.
No, you can't see that. That's the thing, right? Lies, and benchmarks. You can't really see that. So the problem is that benchmark is that it's testing kind of like one specific thing, right? And that was like the whole kind of like React controversy, like with React Fur or whatever. And at ReactConf, is that like, well, this is like one benchmark. You can write like a bunch of different ones, and the way that React did it is that they wrote a benchmark and did publish it. And it's like, yeah, good luck. We have the fastest framework. We're just not going to show the benchmark that we used. And like, I can do that with any framework if you want. So the way to kind of like to read the kind of like the JS framework benchmark is that they are kind of like just kind of like clumps of frameworks, especially on the kind of like the left side of the things. It's like you can tell that it's like, oh, that's like kind of like in our like group, but you can't tell which one is faster, right? So the way that I'm going to do it is that I have like a different ones open, right? And I just like clicked around in the last I guess like half a year maybe, right? And we're just going to look at the what are we going to look at? There are so many of them, so it's like it's kind of like hard. So I think it's like vanilla JS WC, right? So like web components with vanilla, which is like 7.7.2, right? Like it's marked as like manual. So Solid, well, yeah, let's just start with like Solid and Svelte 5, right? So Solid is faster. Svelte, and where's Solid? Svelte is faster, right? Solid. Okay, Svelte is faster. Okay, Svelte is faster. And this one, okay, bad example. Most of them ended up like with Svelte faster, but like they are going to be like in random order, right? So like on this one, the Vue Vapor is like faster than Svelte, right? On this one, where's Vue Vapor? Vapor, right? So like on this one, Vue Vapor is the slowest, right? So like it's not going to show you which one is faster. Like this is the limitation of this framework. Like it can show you the difference between like kind of like Vue, React, and Angular. It's not going to show you the difference between Svelte and Solid. And like the funniest one is the whatever the Ripple, right? Oh, they don't have Ripple here. Where do you get Ripple? I saw Ripple. I know that it's there. Ripple. Okay, yeah. So the funniest thing about like Ripple is that like he uploaded like his framework to the benchmark, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't know how to run it locally. Sorry guys, I'm just like assuming it's going to be fast, right? So like he knows what this benchmark is measuring, so he's like, oh, I can just like optimize for that, and like I don't have to worry about the actual run. It's going to be faster. And it's like, yeah, like it shows that it's like the fastest like ever of like the bunch, right? And it's like, yeah, he's like, I didn't have time to optimize it. Like I don't know how to run it on my machine or anything, right? And how to say it? the way that the thing is measuring the things that it's measuring, and the way that you write the thing will make sure that you get into this like bunch from kind of like from like WC to I'm not even sure like which one is the like the closing. I think it's like one of the WASM ones. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, late is already kind of like too slow or whatever, right? So there is this like range from like 1 kind of like 0.7 to kind of like 1.14, I think, right? That is like, well, those are the fast frameworks. Like on every run, they're going to be kind of like there, like in the random order, right? And saying like the Vapor is fastest, it's like because of what? Like why would it be the fastest, right? And it's like, well, Ripple is faster. Like like does that like negate your whole argument or whatever? So like I don't know. Uh, that was the part where I was like, okay, I have to do video because like that's not the like the lies, damn lies, and benchmarks is like, well, you're just like not reading the benchmark, right? Right? Is it? It can show you that you're in the bunch, right? It can show you that you're like competing with Svelte 5, Solid, well, not Ripple, right? Like Ripple, I think it technically should be faster. I think they are like not doing kind of like completely everything that like Signals are doing. So I think Ripple will, well, I guess depending on the runs or whatever, right? Like I think Ripple should be kind of like faster than like this bunch, but I don't know if that's going to be like seen on this benchmark because like the ones that I've seen before, I think it was like a bit slower than like vanilla WC, but like on this one it's faster, right? So I have like no idea. What is the other one that we have here? Does this one have Ripple? No. We only have like one that has Ripple now. Okay, well, where am I going to this? So, not have you read the benchmark, and it is going to be here on this benchmark just because like that's what this benchmark is measuring, right? This benchmark is measuring, are you basically doing like 772, right? Like, are you just basically doing like manual updates like yourself, right? Then it's measuring kind of like, are you kind of like signals based, right? Then it's measuring kind of like, are you just like kind of like fast, how do I say it? A bunch of this stuff is like KO JSX, right? Like that's like using like Ryan's kind of like engine from like rendering engine from Solid, but like using Knockout as like reactivity, right? And I don't remember if like this one is also kind of like that, but just like using Vue reactivity. And it's like, yeah, so all of those with his engine are going to be like almost as fast as Solid, because the Solid is like the most optimized, like his engine is most optimized for Solid, right? But like just which reactivity you're using kind of like doesn't really matter, right? It's going to be like that thing. So then we have like a different like kind of like variations of kind of like vanilla, right? So UHTML or like Lift HTML or whatever, right? They're just like slight kind of like slight abstractions kind of like on top of vanilla, right? So you're paying for some sort of engine, but like the results are like pretty optimized. They're not signal based, right? So like they're doing different things. So that's why they're in this like 120 range, and that's kind of like where I think Vue is. I think Vue is like one of the fastest kind of like engine on top of vanilla and whatnot. Is like, yeah, kind of like it's there, but I think then we have like Preact, right, at kind of like 140 range, and then it's going to be Angular with signals, right? They're not. I think they have like a Angular. Yeah, interesting. I think I had like a zoneless, whatever it was called. No, okay, so it is slower. Okay, so like, but anyway, so like this benchmark will show you the batches, right? So like it will show you that like kind of like where Preact is, where Angular is, where what do we have after Angular? It has to be, it's probably already React. Yeah. So we have like React and kind of like old Angular being kind of like on their own thing. And after that we have just like we have like things that are making React slower, basically. It's like, oh, React with Redux, React with like with this and that. Then we have Ember that is like the slowest one, right? And at some point it like we start seeing like Blazor and Quick and whatever, right? It's like, oh yeah, we don't worry about like, but actually I'm curious about Quick. Why is Quick showing up here? Is that like the first version? They had like a very slow like first version, so, but this is like a like recent framework. Oh, sorry, recent run. So I don't know why Quick is so slow. What happened to them? Yeah, I guess they're slow. Anyway, Blazor. The Blazor is the kind of like the butt of the joke of this framework. So it's like you can compare it in that thing. And by the way, like at ReactConf, I actually asked Joseph Ona about like the benchmark and whatnot, and he kind of like mostly kind of like said the same thing that he said on the conference in the talk, right? He said it's like, well, we tried, right? Like we tried kind of like rewriting React to like to hit these benchmarks and whatnot, and it's like, well, the changes that we are doing there, they're like they hurt overall like performance, like the metric that they have for React, right? It's like they have basically is like how many people are using Facebook, and like if we make React slower, the numbers go down, and they're like, well, we're not making that change, right? Like they have their own like kind of like business metric that like how they're measuring how quick React is, and that metric is like it's just like against this benchmark. So they're like, we're not optimizing for this benchmark because like that's not what like makes money. So yeah, so what he said is like they tried and like it didn't play out like on a like a bigger scale. So like that's why they basically don't care about this benchmark, which is again like that's why it's like, oh, like the manual DOM updates are the fastest. It's like, yeah, or you can like not manually DOM update, right? Like you just like have like a virtual list instead of like a real list, and then you don't need to do as many like DOM updates, or you do DOM updates like in background or like concurrently or whatever the like the async React or whatever they're calling it nowadays, right? There are different ways to deliver the business value, right? But yeah, it's just like the fastest signals based framework just triggered me. We don't have the data, like it is like randomly like slower or faster. Like why are you making this point?
So this benchmark, essentially, it's an app that creates thousands of rows and then deletes the rows and then updates the rows again and does it multiple times and keeps track of average time taken to do all of those things. And you get an overall score, which is the weighted geometric mean in terms of how performant that particular framework is. And Vue with Vapor mode is just slightly slower than Vanilla.js. So these are exciting times. Basically,
Yeah, well, this one is like completely sealed, right? So like,
Vue with
where
Vapor
is it?
mode is just slightly in terms of how.
Yeah, so like, here's like Vanilla.js is like 1, and Vue is slightly slower, right? So like Vue is like 10% slower than Vanilla, but it's like, yeah, but like those things are also like 10% of this number, right? So it's just like you have this kind of like 110, right? Like, and everyone is like around 110. It's like, so all of them are slightly like faster or slower depending on the run, on the run, right? And if you don't care about 10% compared to vanilla, why do you care about 10% here? This is just, I don't know. Like, yeah, like, I don't know, like Solid or Svelte 5 are slightly slower than vanilla, right? I just, it just triggers me. The like, yeah, like reading of the benchmarks is just triggering.
How performant that particular framework is. And Vue with Vapor mode is just slightly slower than Vanilla.js. So these are exciting times. Basically, you're going to be able to write the exact same Vue code and output code that is just as fast, almost just as fast as Vanilla.js. So how small is it? In looking at just like a hello world, the virtual DOM bundled size is about 22.8 kilobytes. And with Vapor mode, it's about 8 kilobytes. So that's about a 65% reduction just by using Vapor.
Yeah, 8 kilobytes is like on the smaller side. Well, you would probably have to do like both for like a real application, right? Because if you have like some sort of, I don't know how that works, but I'm just like presuming that like for like a bigger application where you're like pulling different libraries and whatnot, you will probably need to like pull in the like the VDOM engine, so that like the older library can use that. I think that's kind of like how Svelte 5 works. They can like, if you're not optimized, they have to like have like this like compat layer. But yeah, the 8 kilobyte is like, if that's true, this is like on the smaller scale. But then again, it's like it's in the same range as like Svelte 5 or Solid. It's more interesting to look at the like, nowadays it's kind of like more interesting to look at the like the SSR builds, because that's kind of like where a lot of the like the bundle chunks now.
Vapor mode. And how do you use it? Very simple. So look at that same Vue component that we wrote earlier. We literally just add the Vapor directive to the script tag. And that is a signal to the Vue.
I feel like this is just like a temporary thing. I'm guessing the like during the rollout, they want people to opt in, and then they will like ask people to opt out, kind of like how Svelte 5 did it. But yeah, it's interesting that they require the tag
compiler, that when it sees this component, instead of compiling it into having the virtual DOM runtime, it's going to compile it to use Vapor mode.
Right, but then you have to check as like, oh, how many components are using virtual DOM, and it's like all those bundle size kind of like wins, right? Like you will lose them
instead. And one of the nice things about how they're introducing it and how it works is you can actually have a combination of components in your application.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You can have components that are based on virtual DOM and using the standard way. You can have components that use Vapor mode. You can even nest virtual DOM components inside of Vapor components. So they've really thought about the architecture of this and are really thinking about how to allow for gradual adoption as they introduce this new rendering mode.
And I think like Angular's tried to do something like that with their like zoneless and zone.js stuff. So yeah, it's not like surprising or anything like that. But yeah, I'm glad that they figured it out.
Similar to opting in for a single component, you can also opt in your entire application.
Okay, that makes sense.
Instead of saying create app, you can say create Vapor app. And now all of your components are Vapor mode by default.
And then
yeah,
you need
Vapor
to opt
mode,
out,
it's pretty slick.
presumably.
Let's look at some of the outputs. So this playground, play.vuejs.org, allows you to put in some Vue single file components, and you can actually look at the compiled output. So I have an example here. Basically this hello world that I was showing you. So we have a ref that holds on to the state. We bind the message there, and then whenever we type into the input, that should update the state. Okay, so that's our component. This JS tab will let you look at the output. And if you want to try this, you want to make sure in the dropdown you select 3.6.0 alpha 2. So the alpha is the one that actually has Vapor mode inside of it. And that will then allow you to put the Vapor keyword here. But before we look at it with Vapor, we can look at the compilation output without it. So what you're looking at on the right-hand side is basically what gets created when you type npm run build in your Vue app. And this template right here gets turned into...
I'm not sure how this small kind of like code is, because like I'm also like cropping it a bit, and they're cropping it a bit, so I will try to make it bigger.
a render function. And if you've ever looked at like React code that wasn't JSX, it's somewhat similar. So we have functions for creating nodes like h1, or creating element nodes like input, and then we can pass in callbacks here. This handles setting up the callback to actually update the state behind the scenes. But this render function here is what got created by writing this template code here. So this is how Vue.js works today. But if I put the Vapor keyword on there, you will see things actually get a little bit simpler and somewhat easier to read. So with Vapor mode, now this
this reads like solid or svelte 5.
This component is using a few other functions. So it's using the template function for each of the elements.
They're doing it on the top level again. Like I don't like that. I've been complaining about this in Solid for a while, and they're still doing it.
And then it's created a render, and then there's a couple of functions that are basically the Vapor runtime. So there's like apply text node and render effect.
Interesting that it's like apply text node, text model. Like I'm presuming that like it subscribes as well, but like I don't see that from the code. I'm curious if that's like some sort of like a selector, and this is kind of like an effect. Wait, which one is it? So I'm like presuming that we are subscribing to message, but there's like a... Oh, that's probably like for the input. Okay, so that's like a double... sorry, that's like a two-way binding, right? So this is how you set the value, and this is how you read it. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Why is it called text if it's text model? Okay, so you have model here. That's why it's called model. Apply text. Okay, so this is their like two-way data binding. So like one is reading the signal, and the other is like updating it. Okay.
And so one of the things to note is if you look at that output without Vapor mode, all of these imports here are coming from Vue.js. And so this is essentially the virtual DOM runtime. This is what we have to import when we have a regular plain old Vue app. But when we are using Vapor mode, the number of imports becomes way less, almost cut in half. And so that's really why we're reducing our bundle sizes, is that outputted built component no longer needs all that extra virtual DOM stuff. So I highly recommend check out the playground, plug your components in, and kind of compare the output, and you can see how all of that's working behind the scenes. So you might be wondering, what's the catch? It only supports and will only support the composition API and script setup. So anybody that was around during the transition from Vue 2 to Vue 3 knows there were a lot of pains around trying to get people to use the composition API and coming across maybe code bases or libraries that weren't converted yet. But for technical reasons, but I think...
Well, it's interesting he's saying this like, oh, everyone should use composition API. But like, I'm pretty sure that like when I did my like 4-hour Vue stream, it was still like, oh, we don't know which one is better, so you use both and whatnot. It's like, oh yeah, now you know which one is better.
Also, for reasons to make sure that we have a more standardized way of doing things, you can only use Vapor mode with script setup and the composition API. Like I mentioned, it's currently in alpha, but they're working fast and working hard. And when version 3.6 is released, all of these features will be experimental. And on that same note of the... not a fiasco, but things weren't great in the transition from Vue 2 to Vue 3, but you'll notice we're not getting a major bump here. We're not going from version 3 to version 4. all of these features in Vapor mode are going to be available in 3.6. So this is kind of a signal from the creators of Vue.js and maintainers that, hey, we want this to be gradual adoption.
Yeah, it's funny that like Svelte didn't do that, right? So the and there is also like a bit of a marketing thing, right? It's like, oh, which version of Svelte are you using? Like, is it 4 or 5? It's clearly kind of like means which pattern you're using, and this whole like, oh, which version of Vue you're using, 2.6 or 2.7 or like 3.5 or 3.6. I'm not like a huge fan.
We don't want to break stuff, and we want you to be able to use this stuff in your apps without needing to do like a full migration and upgrade to like version 4. When it's initially released, you will not be able to do SSR, transitions, keep alive, or suspense, but it will support those things eventually. And I'll show you the roadmap in a second. There are open PRs that are actually working on getting all of this stuff working with Vapor mode. And ultimately, they want it to be a slow transition so they can get community feedback. You can
no SSR is funny.
And initially, depending on if you're not doing anything too crazy, you can.
But it also probably like explains why the bundle size is so small, right? Like if you don't have like SSR capabilities, that's maybe like that maybe will not translate into like once you have it.
Start getting much more performant apps. If you want to try it today, just do a npm install of Vue at 3.6.0-alpha.2. You can check out
if I wasn't already streaming for an hour, I would have tried that.
PM to see if there's any alphas released since now, because right now alpha 2 is the latest one. But literally just install it and then you'll get.
Yeah, I'm actually I don't know. I don't know when this talk was happening, so I don't know how kind of like how far away we are from this. Yeah, so alpha 2 is 3 months ago. Okay. Yeah, I don't see like another alpha, so.
Access to importing create Vapor app and also get access to adding that Vapor attribute to your Vue components. So looking ahead, you can check out the roadmap. So there is a GitHub issue on the Vue core repo that is the roadmap for Vapor. So you can see all of the core features that they plan to support and all of the open PRs that you also could potentially comment on. So if you're trying to use some of these features in your app and maybe something breaks, you can let them know.
I just want to learn what is Vue keep alive? Built-in component, conditional cache component instances. Okay, so it is kind of like activity from React. Oh, so I can do something. Oh, that's interesting. Well, no, it's not interesting. Oh, that's probably like a before. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. When did they add a? I'm curious if like who stole from where, right? Like my whole argument is like Vue is just copying kind of like the things from like everyone around us, and it would be funny if, yeah. I'm curious what's the like what is happening with the component when you do that. Yeah, I don't follow the Vue stuff much, so. Oh, interesting. So it's not implemented the same way. Okay, so I have this input, right? So like that's going to be like my thing, right? And x.value, right? So now I'm like I have the DOM there, but what is the parent element? This div. Where is this div? Right. Okay, so they have the DOM node, but they like unmounted. Okay, it's interesting that like React went a different way, right? So they don't like unmount the component. I think Solid also like doing it that way, where they keep the DOM node, but like they don't. Oh, someone subscribed. Yeah, thank you. So it's like, yeah, keep alive is Vue's activity, but like the activity works differently, right? Like the activity keeps the DOM around, and I think when like Ryan was like, oh, why did it implement it like that? You can just like unload the DOM from the unload the node from the DOM. Yeah, yeah, okay. And it's like it says it was there for like 5 years. Yeah, so they will keep the DOM around with all the state, but they will unmount it and then put it back. Yeah, that's cool. It's visible. Yeah. So like this is the div that like gets unmounted. Okay. I'm glad that we learned that.
But you can see all of the work that they're doing, and this is real. It's really happening. It's not vaporware. It's legit.
It's not vaporware, right? But like he announced Vue Vapor like on one of the first Vue confs. Oh, not Vue. I think it was VidConf. But like, yeah, that was like a long time ago.
And in the issue, you can also see that they care about the ecosystem. So they care about making sure that all of this stuff works with Vue Router and Pina and Nuxt for SSR
Yeah.
hydration.
For me,
so
it would be interesting to like to look at it in the context of Nuxt, because like yeah, like I'm not like a huge fan of Vue. I think it's kind of like both the community is like kind of like funky, right? Like CJ is a part of the community, and like I don't like that sort of like vision of like how the web is happening, right? And also on a technical side, I think Vue is like meh. It is like one of the most popular frameworks apart from React, right? So it's like they're doing something right to keep it around and whatnot, but uh, they're doing something right. But I just, yeah, I'm not sure if being just like a mishmash of like everything that happens on the web is like a winning strategy. I wish you had a bit of like a backbone and you were like, here's the right way, and like we're going to pursue that. That's kind of like thing about React, right? Is that they think that they are right. They think that their way is the right way, and they will just like keep going in that direction. But yeah, Vue is like, oh, we're doing Vue 2, Vue 3, and it's like let's just put everything together. Which again, like you kind of like have to do some of that stuff, right? Like even Angular is like having to do that, but like that's not as exciting, if that makes sense. But yeah, Nuxt is a bit more interesting because like they do care about kind of like the overall experience, right? Like they set out some sort of like um how to say it, best practices or whatever, right? They're like, oh, this is the right way. It's like we think that like auto registering like all the components so you don't have to import them. We think that's the right way, like we're turning it on and all that stuff, right? So um I think that's a bit more interesting, and yeah, they care about like there are like some features that are like there are in Nuxt that are like again, they are kind of like one of the first ones because like they are big enough, right? Like the Vue ecosystem is like again like one of the, I think it is like the biggest now. I think they overtook like Angular kind of like recently. Well, Angular has like a lot of like Google support and whatnot, right? But like the Vue and Angular are like the next one after React. So they are like big enough that they can have kind of like everything, right? They can have like 10 like state management libraries. They can have like Vue query and whatnot, right? Um, but they also do some things that are like, well, that's only like exist in Vue, right? Like uh, they're like OnJS stuff has like a lot of their integrations are kind of like around Vue, right? And um, all of this like Nitro on storage. I think they have like a fountain or whatever it's called for like fonts, like optimizing fonts and whatnot. That's the stuff that's like is like born in kind of like in the Vue ecosystem, right? Or again, depending how you look at it, like Vite, right? Like Vite was born out of the Vue ecosystem. So it's like there are some things that are like cool there that they're like inventing, and like in my kind of like view, again, like I don't follow Vue too closely or whatever, but like for me they're coming out from Nuxt, so like for me Nuxt is like a bit more interesting project than Vue. right? The Vue kind of like the everything framework, the framework for everyone, and they're like, oh well, we'll pick the kind of like the right parts of it or whatever. So I want to see it kind of like a Next, right? To like all those like bundle questions or whatever. They're a bit more interesting to look at the full solution than just the whatever the you can do like in the Hello World. So we can like compare them a bit more real. Yeah. So, but yeah, overall, I don't kind of like Vue because it is a bit like we saw this cool thing, we added it. And I don't kind of like enjoy kind of like Vue kind of like community. That's my thing with like PHP, right? It's like PHP is a silly language and whatnot, but like the community that it builds is just bad. It's like straight up bad. Like just I don't know. So for Vue, I think there are like people who kind of like care, but there are a lot of people who are just like, well, I went to the React website. It seemed complicated, so I downloaded the next best thing that like I could understand. And it's like why would you say that out loud, right? Like, why would you say that like you pick a framework because you don't understand what frameworks are doing? Right? That's a bit like my criticism for like Svelte as well, right? It's like, well, I couldn't understand like whatever, and that's why I'm using this one. It's like, oh, look at this thing, it's like so complicated, no one can use it. And it's like, well, millions of people use it, and like, why are you saying it like that? Yeah. So uh, yeah, and like the like the funny part is like this dismissiveness of like, oh, well, we know better because we are full of people who like don't understand anything. I don't know, but like it just like rubs me the wrong way. um and again, like a lot of like talented people work there, so it is like it's kind of like unfair that that's their reputation, right? And the same thing for like PHP, right? There is this guy who like built Laravel, but there's like users of PHP are people who couldn't like figure out how to use like a real language, right? Which is not great thing to be around. Anyway, so it looks promising. It's cool that they figured out a lot of those kind of like things that they didn't know how to do. It is a bit like silly that like that it doesn't have SSR yet. Uh, it is. I think it's like a right call of like calling it just like a kind of like opt-in feature and whatnot, because it's like it's not ready, right? Like it doesn't have some of the features, it doesn't have SSR and whatnot. So it's like, well, like to have this as an option so like people can start playing with it, but like you don't make everyone use it. I think that's the right way. I wonder if that means that like they will probably do like a Vue 4 once the Vapor is default, right? I'm curious if that's kind of like how it's going to play out. Is like, well, right now you can't really like use it yet, so let's do kind of like I don't know, like Next. I don't remember what version of Next is there right now, but like kind of like Next for Vue 4 that are going to be like with Vapor as default. But for now, let's just like have it around so that like people can play with it and like say what works and what doesn't work. So I think that's yeah. I'm glad that they figured that out. And uh, if a lot of people enjoy Vue, I'm not going to tell them not to. But like, it's kind of like not for me. Uh, I'm glad that stuff like Angular signals or Preact signals or like Vue Vapor are happening. It's a bit like um, how to say it. On one hand, it's like it's good. On the other hand, it's like, oh, so are you just like picking up whatever is good? So I think it's like it was easy for Vue because they already had a lot of that stuff, and it's fun that they were able to figure out how to just like kind of like use their like reactivity, right, without any changes and whatnot. I think there will be changes, right? Like the lifecycle events are probably like happening in like a bit different order or whatever. So like there will be some changes, but like on the top level, just because they already had this language of interactivity from kind of like hooks, they already had a lot of the like the runtime stuff that was like working like that. It is cool that their transition is like not as like drastic as like Svelte 5 one. And it is kind of like interesting to follow the kind of like the solid journey, right, on the last kind of like 5 years, that there are so many like signals around right now that like people don't even like know about solid anymore, right? I had just like this thing on Twitter where I was like, "Oh, why are you not using real signals?" And they're like, "Why wouldn't like Preact signals be not real?" Right? And it's like, well, yeah, because like the real signals are the solid ones, but yeah, like he was asking like, "Hey, any solid devs? No, like any HTMX devs? Yeah." Right? So yeah, it is the whatever the saying is that like if you don't know the sorry, if you don't know the history, you're going to repeat it, and if you know the history, you're going to be annoyed by seeing the people to repeat it. And it's like it is annoying to like to know the history. It is annoying to kind of like to know that there were things before React. There will be things after Signals, but yeah, it just like most of the people get the simplified versions, and I'm just annoyed by that. I always annoyed when people saying things that are like very simple and like don't go into details, but then like I'm here 1.5 hours into like 20-minute talk, right? Like I can't I can't put all of my nuance in 20-minute talk. That's the problem. I need to figure out that. Okay. That that will be it. I'm trying to kind of like stream more, so I'm trying to find like an easy easy thing to do, and yeah, reacting to this talk was easy. Yeah, sorry, CJ, if I said bad things about you or Vue, but yeah, but it was easy.
Go forth, build, install the alpha, try it out, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch Coding Garden from time to time. I watch Syntax from time to time. So I think they are like very interesting people, and like I do watch. I kind of like hate watch, right? Like sometimes like the content that like I don't agree with, just so that we can learn things like Keep Alive, right? Like I didn't know that. I might have known that like 5 years ago, but like now I don't. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah, thank you everyone who joined on the stream, and